An old rancher's promise. The wedding should have been the happiest day of Samuel Carter's life. Instead, the bride standing beside him looked as though she was walking toward her own execution. The tiny wooden church in the Wyoming Territory was silent except for the preacher's voice. Samuel, a respected 58-year-old rancher with weathered hands and kind gray eyes, stole another glance at the young woman beside him. Her name was Evelyn Hart. She never smiled. She never looked anyone in the eye. She simply stared at the worn wooden floor as if carrying a secret too heavy for anyone else to understand. Everyone in town whispered that Samuel had made a mistake marrying such a quiet stranger. None of them knew the truth. Neither did Samuel. 5 months earlier, Samuel had found Evelyn unconscious beside a frozen river during one of the worst snowstorms the territory had seen in years. Her horse had disappeared, and she carried no luggage except a small leather journal tied with a faded blue ribbon. When she finally woke inside Samuel's ranch house, she refused to answer questions about her past. "I don't have a family anymore," she said softly. "I don't have anywhere to go." Samuel wasn't the kind of man who abandoned people. After losing his wife to illness nearly 10 years earlier, he had lived alone with only his horses and cattle for company. He offered Evelyn a room until spring. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. She worked harder than anyone Samuel had ever known. She repaired fences, cared for injured horses, cooked warm meals, and somehow brought laughter back into the lonely ranch. Yet every night she sat on the porch watching the stars with tears quietly rolling down her cheeks. Samuel wanted to ask why, but he respected silence. Spring arrived, bringing green fields and blooming wildflowers. One evening, Samuel found Evelyn packing her belongings. "I should leave before people start talking," she whispered. Samuel looked at the nearly empty suitcase. "You have nowhere to go. I'll find somewhere. You deserve more than surviving." She looked away. "I'm not someone worth loving." Samuel's heart broke hearing those words. He stepped closer. "I've spent years believing my life was already over." She slowly raised her eyes. "You brought life back into this house." He took a deep breath. "I know I'm older than you. I know people will judge us. But if you'd let me, I'd spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel alone again." For the first time since arriving, Evelyn cried openly. Not from sadness, from hope. Their wedding was small. Only a handful of neighbors attended. Some smiled sincerely. Others whispered cruel gossip. "She's only marrying him for his ranch. She'll disappear once she gets the money." Samuel ignored every rumor. Love wasn't built on other people's opinions. It was built on trust. 3 weeks after the wedding, everything changed. A black carriage rolled into town. 3 well-dressed men stepped out. The sheriff rode straight to Samuel's ranch. "They're asking for your wife." Evelyn froze. Her face turned completely pale. "They found me." Samuel gently held her shaking hands. "Who?" She looked at him with tears filling her eyes. "I never told you who I used to be." Years earlier, Evelyn had been the daughter of one of New York City's wealthiest railroad businessmen. Her real name wasn't Evelyn Hart. It was Eleanor Whitmore. Her father had arranged her marriage to the arrogant son of another wealthy family to expand their business empire. She refused. The man became obsessed. When her father died unexpectedly, the businessman tried forcing the marriage anyway. Eleanor escaped during the night, changing her name and disappearing into the western frontier. For 3 years she had lived in fear. Now they had found her. "They'll never stop searching," she whispered. Samuel quietly walked into the bedroom. He returned carrying the marriage certificate. Standing in front of the fireplace, he folded it carefully before placing it inside his jacket. "They'll have to speak with me first." The wealthy businessman arrived the next morning. He entered Samuel's ranch house without asking permission. "Eleanor." She didn't answer. "You belong with your family." Samuel stood between them. "Her name is Evelyn." The businessman laughed. "Old man, do you even know who she is?" Samuel nodded. "I know exactly who she is." The visitor smirked. "She's worth millions." Samuel smiled calmly. "Then it's a good thing I married her for her heart." The room became silent. The businessman expected greed. Instead, he found loyalty. Days later, lawyers arrived carrying legal papers. Eleanor had inherited her father's fortune years ago. No one could force her into marriage. Everything the businessman had claimed was built on lies. He had no legal right to control her life. When the court ruled in her favor, the man left town in disgrace. He was never seen again. One evening, Samuel found Evelyn standing beside the horse pasture watching the sunset. "You could leave now," he said gently. "You have your fortune back. You could live anywhere." She smiled. "For years I lived inside the richest homes in America." She looked toward the ranch. "I've never felt rich until I came here." Samuel laughed softly. "You've made this old ranch feel young again." She slipped her hand into his. "And you've made me believe that love doesn't ask where you've been. It only asks where you're willing to go together." Using part of her inheritance, Evelyn built a school for children whose families couldn't afford education. Samuel expanded the ranch, hiring struggling widows and veterans who needed honest work. Their ranch became known as the safest place for anyone starting over. People no longer remembered the rumors surrounding their marriage. They remembered kindness. Years passed. Samuel's hair turned completely white. Evelyn still walked beside him every evening through the fields where wildflowers danced in the summer wind. Visitors often asked the secret to their unlikely marriage. Samuel would simply smile. "I never fell in love with the woman she used to be. I fell in love with the woman she chose to become." Evelyn would squeeze his hand and quietly add, "And he never tried to rescue a wealthy heiress. He rescued a lonely soul." When Samuel passed away peacefully many years later, Evelyn buried him beneath the old oak tree overlooking the ranch they had built together. She placed their worn marriage certificate inside a small wooden box beside him. On it she wrote one final sentence. "The greatest fortune I ever inherited wasn't my father's wealth. It was the love of a man who never cared who I used to be." And every spring, wildflowers bloomed around that old oak tree, reminding everyone who passed that true love isn't measured by age, money, or the secrets of yesterday, but by the courage to choose each other, every single day. Please, friends, subscribe.